It's been more than 30 years since 4 Los Angeles police officers brutally beat Rodney King, a beating that was caught on camera by an unassuming man by the name of George Holliday. 4 Los Angeles police officers beat Rodney King nearly to death after a traffic stop. Holliday was the man behind the camera. He was asleep at the time and said the commotion woke him up. He took his brand new camera outside and recorded one of the most violent moments of police brutality unfolding right in front of him. Holliday died this week as a result of complications from COVID-19, but his legacy in picking up his camera to film those 4 LAPD officers kicking, punching, hurling racial slurs, and using a stun gun on King while he was handcuffed and on the ground is a lasting one. The officers were eventually acquitted by a jury, leading to the 1992 uprising across the city. 4 of the officers were then tried in federal court and 2 were convicted. Back with me to talk about how George Holliday's video changed the way we prosecute police brutality and killing cases is veteran prosecutor and legal contributor Paul Henderson. All right, Paul, talk about why Holliday recording the police beating of Rodney King was a game changer.
Well, it was a game changer for many of the folks that saw this videotape that were shocked, that were surprised, that were amazed and did not expect to see that cops could perform in this way and that would act in this way with an African American that was handcuffed, that was on the ground, that was being attacked in this way that seemed vicious and dangerous and uncalled for from viewers that saw it. So this was a turning point in how folks and generally in the community viewed and saw the police department outside of disenfranchised communities, right? And so for many people, especially for communities of color that may have been aware about behaviors like this happening in the past, this was the first time that we had, for many people, the first time that there was a recording that was so visible generally in the media and across this country, so that people changed their perspectives and changed their opinions about the role of policing, not just in California, but in this country. And so it opened the door to many of these conversations in many of the same ways that the George Floyd video did, in many of the same ways that Freddie Gray did, in many of the same ways that any number of instances that we've talked about in this past decade. But Rodney King was one of the first where we saw it live and in person, or not live, but afterwards, recorded in this way for conversations throughout this country about police. And I think it opened the door for a lot of the conversations that subsequently came out of that videotape being shown and the lawsuit that came from that videotape as well. Not just the civil one, but the criminal one as well. Very important, all because of this videotape as the linchpin.
Now, during the break, Paul, you mentioned that you have a connection to the Rodney King case. Tell us how.
Well, it was quite a long time ago, and as youthful as I am, I was in law school working for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in Los Angeles while this case was going on, and while the lawyers there were coordinating with the ACLU on the resolution of this case, both in trying to get the police department to change their behaviors and to address the civil lawsuit that was pending and the criminal lawsuit that was being contemplated and evaluated by prosecutors at the time. And so for me, as a young African-American law student, it was what opened the door to me to begin my career in prosecution and wanting to have a seat at the table to decide what accountability should look like for people that looked like me that came from my community. It really was an inspiration for my whole career, this case, and working side by side with legal luminaries like Connie Rice, who were addressing some of the concerns that we saw and the violence that we saw committed by police officers against Rodney King.
Paul, I spoke with Minnesota's AG, Keith Ellison, this afternoon, and I asked him if he had any doubts that he would lose the case against Derek Chauvin, even with the 9 minutes and 29 seconds of footage that they had. And he said that he actually never believed that they were really going to win. And he actually cited the Rodney King case where you caught these 4 officers doing what they did and they were still acquitted in court. We see very few cases where police are actually charged, indicted, and certainly not convicted. Again, Derek Chauvin kneeled on George Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes and knew he was being recorded from every angle and didn't flinch. So do you think that camera phones, I mean, they've made some significant strides, right? They've made some good, but has it really deterred bad behavior?
I mean, I think it's hard to quantify that, but I think it's very important that we have the ability to make these recordings. And it's similar to the same analysis when we're talking about body-worn cameras, and it mandates the need for body-worn cameras. But the public, I think, does serve a role and does serve a purpose. Because without body-worn cameras and without civilians recording things around them, we wouldn't know about Rodney King, per se. We wouldn't know about George Floyd, per se. And I just want to point out that even with the allowances that we have as the public to make these recordings, and we should talk about that in terms of what those parameters are, there is still behavior that goes on in spite of that doesn't get recorded. One of the things that I like to remind people about is, you know, we saw what happened with George Floyd. We saw what happened with Rodney King. My question is, what are the instances where there's bad behavior that we don't see? How do we both address reform and accountability for law enforcement officials, and those are 2 separate things, in a way that's responsible and comprehensive, that serves the needs of race-disparate outcomes involving law enforcement practices? That's a real question. And so I'd like to think that having the ability to record law enforcement makes a difference, and it shouldn't have to. But in the same way, body-worn cameras diminish those bad outcomes as well, but it shouldn't have to as well. The fact that you could get caught doing it isn't the issue. The issue is that you shouldn't be doing it in the first place, and your behavior as law enforcement should be the same across the board, regardless of whom you are dealing with or interacting with, and not based on race or sexual orientation or citizen status. None of that should matter, and yet it does. And so I think when we're having this conversation, folks need to be reminded about the fact that they are allowed to videotape, that they are able to make videotapes like Rodney King, and those videotapes can make a difference. You have constitutional rights and protections to allow you to do that, and they make a difference specifically for disenfranchised communities.
I was going to get to that next question, but we ran out of time, that people do have the First Amendment right to record. Of course, there's, you know, those issues of when and how, but we'll get into that at a later date. All right, veteran prosecutor and legal contributor Paul Henderson, thank you again.